now because everybody worked together through this. They had several different investigators, so if one investigator had a problem, they could go to another one and discuss that problem with them, the case with them. And I thought it was a great help to the community. But to go back to the people, and that's what we need to do again. We need to try to combine all of them. And that's where your leaders of your agencies come together. They would meet that. And then, but the community itself is a great asset to any law enforcement agency. You need the community involvement. We don't have that much anymore, and we need to get that back for the community and us.
Thank you, Boyd. Mr. Cooper.
One of the things I'd like to do is get back to our regularly scheduled monthly meetings of all the law enforcement, chief law enforcement officers in the county. And that's not just Canyon City, Florence, and Fremont SO. We also included Colorado DOC CID. We included the Colorado State Patrol. Occasionally we had Colorado Parks and Wildlife come in and attend those meetings because we're all state certified law enforcement professionals. And as a law enforcement professional, I have to respect jurisdictional boundaries. Criminals don't. And I know we have criminals going between Canyon City and Florence, out in the county and Penrose. And but we need to have that regular contact with those chief law enforcement agency heads so that we can discuss what we're doing within our respective agencies and arrive at a common goal, common targeting of some of these prolific offenders. For the community, Boyd's right. The Sheriff's Department needs to become closer to the community. One of the things I've been doing is going out and talking to different community groups in the different parts of the county to find out what their specific needs are. What are they looking from the office to provide for them? And then are we doing the job that they need done? Do they see us regularly enough? I'd also like to reestablish the Citizens Academy within the Fremont County Sheriff's Office. That contact with citizens does two things. It shows the citizens what we're doing as a law enforcement agency, and it also gets the officers to where they're comfortable talking to citizens. Because that's one of the things I see in my officers today, is we have lost the ability to communicate effectively one-on-one with the people that we deal with.
Thank you very much.
I have a question, please.
Yes, sir.
I'll start with Kennedy Cooper. Since Kennedy Cooper, you were in charge of CERT for many years before it was taken apart.
Correct.
What was the arrest rate and solvability rate that was in CERT?
It was, the arrest rate, I believe, was over 80% for all felony, and that's all that CERT worked was felony cases. Conviction rate was in the high 90s.
Is that higher than the average normal in the country?
By a factor of almost 4.
Okay. Question B on that is, why was it dismantled?
That was a decision by Chief Law Enforcement Administrator, and I did not have a direct influence on that at the time.
Okay. You stated earlier you plan on bringing CERT back.
Or something similar.
Or something similar. In what aspect? Is it going to be a selective CERT? Is it going to be a... You know, Canyon City has, and I'll be very honest, Canyon City has the, what's the word I'm looking for? Has the past of being an island and excluding other law enforcement partners. Are you going to include everybody in this new revamped CERT, or is it going to be a selective group of law enforcement agencies?
I would like to, but one of the things that needs to have happen is we need to show the egos and work just on what the mission statement is of the organization.
Well, the Eagle that I know of left is no longer a Canyon PD, but that's besides the point. So we'll go on. You mentioned earlier in a question that I asked that I was told no, I couldn't ask at that time. I know Canyon City has a problem retaining employees, police officers. How do you plan to retain Sheriff's Department deputies when you can't, you've been in charge for many years, when you can't retain Canyon City officers, and Canyon City pays better, their insurance is better, they have a retirement that's better, and not that the county doesn't want to, believe me, it's just that their budget is tight, and they can't right now, and hopefully with the growth in Colorado that'll change. But how do you plan on keeping the deputies if you're at that such a crutch?
You can't nail them to the floor. And the reality is if you hire someone and they get a better offer or they decide they want a different experience, then they're going to leave. So the only thing that I know that actually keeps people here is people that were born and raised in the community and have established family ties. Those are the people that stay here. But we have a real transient workforce in our new millennials, and they think nothing of completely changing their entire life and going and trying something else. That's happened with my organization at least 3 times in the last 2 years, where I've had good police officers come and work for us, and they did good work, and they just decided they wanted to do something else. That's difficult to combat if that's the mentality that we have in our workforce.
Mr. Canterbury, same question for you. How do you plan on retaining a deputy workforce in the Sheriff's Department with such a crunch going into it?
First of all, I'd probably get with the deputies that's there now and communicate with them, and try to find out what the inside problem is besides money. That's always a big factor. I think that if you've got to get your deputies that's there now stable to where they're making something, and then you go from them and find out why these other guys are leaving, because they don't talk. And in order to make that better, you've got to make it better for all. So to bring them in, I think you got to bring in other outside agencies. I don't believe you need to bring in rookies from the academies. I think you need to try to find seasoned people that come in that out of Denver, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, who knows, that's willing to come into a smaller area, make this their home, and know what they're coming into to get out of that fast pace of Denver and the shootings every night and the burglaries, and my God, it's terrible. But so you look at them, and they're out there. They're there. I've already been, and I mean, I'm not even sheriff yet, and I've already been contacted several times by different police officers out of the different cities that's working right now for the bigger departments. So once they leave there, and they're making good money up there, they're making $60,000, $70,000 a year. Then they come down here, and they know the consequences of leaving there to come to here. The pay isn't near as much, but they're willing to do that to get into a little slower pace of life and to get a life back into their own community. In your bigger cities, you don't have that big of a life up there in the communities. They're on the go continuously. And it's getting worse and worse here, but my God, we're 19 people short at the Sheriff's Department. I mean, our detentions is down, the patrol's down. So you've got to fill that up, but you got to make sure the people that you're coming in want to come into this community, not just for a passing part. That's where you try to get your seasoned officers that's coming in that wants to slow down out of the fast pace and still be a good officer. But you got to start with the people that's there now. They are so important to this Sheriff's Department that you've got to talk to them and find out what they want and see if you can help meet their needs.
Okay. One last question, Mr. Moderator. I'm just going to be bold and straight out and ask it to all 3 candidates, and it's a real simple.
Thank you. You make my job easy.
Thank you. You're welcome. It's a simple answer. In the past, local law enforcement has always been deputized as deputy sheriffs. What is your position on that, and are you or do you plan, without doing a dance, making local law enforcement, Canyon PD officers and Florence PD officers, deputy sheriffs, so that there is no jurisdictional problem, that they can respond and help out at any time, is the past is what we've been doing. So what is your skip on that?
Well, I agree with you. I think I'd had a little talk with you or one of your officers about that situation at the last period. I believe every law enforcement officer, even the wildlife people and river rangers, should have county commissions. They should have, they're post certified, they should be able to operate within the guidelines of the county also, and not be restricted with their hands tied. And it also helps out the Sheriff's Department a little bit, because if I need, everybody's got a county commission in their back pocket, and I know that, and I need an officer, and go through the proper chain of command, and I get on the radio and say, hey, I need some assistance over here, and you happen to have somebody over there, can go over there and work. It's definitely an asset, and it's definitely going to happen.
Okay. Mr. Cooper?
My stance is a little different. I probably would not. There's no need for it statutorily, because Colorado has a mutual aid agreement where if one of your officers has a need, they can call the county, deputy's going to respond. Same thing in Canyon City. If we need assistance from either Florence or the Sheriff's Department, you make the call, they show up. It's statutorily covered. I do think there is a need for special deputy status when we get to things like drug task force, and the reason for that is, again, goes back on the district attorney's office, is they want a filing of one case under one case number, regardless of how many entities are involved. And in a situation like that, it makes more sense to to have a special deputy status afforded to either a Canyon City officer or a Fremont County officer, so that we can file that under the Sheriff's Department. And so the filings would come through that office and not through the separate agencies.
And that has been that way in the past too. Through CERT, everybody was designated as a sheriff. We all rotated cases. Mr. Canterbury, your opinion on that?
My opinion, I would. Let me tell you why, is because I live in Williamsburg, and there's been several calls out in Williamsburg to the Sheriff's Department, and the Sheriff's deputy was away. He wouldn't get there for 30 minutes or whatever. The first responder that was up there would be Florence PD, and they would take care of it, and then the deputy would come in later. I see a need for that, and especially in your Coal Creek areas and your unincorporated areas. Another one is Penrose. I know that Penrose, as short as the deputy, the county is right now of deputies, you get somebody on a call up in Copper Gulch, and you get a call in Penrose, it's gonna take them a while to get there. And it's not because we got bad deputies, it's because we're short-handed right now, we're short-staffed. And these guys, when they get there and respond to it, I mean, they might save somebody's life. And that's what it's all about. So yes, I would probably deputize them.
Thank you. I'll keep my mouth shut for a while and pass the mic on.
Thank you, Chief.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, you may.
If the other agencies are not deputized, are their hands tied?
No.
Mr.
No.
Canterbury? No, it was for all three of you. I just happened to be looking at Mr. Canterbury.
No, they're not tied, but what they would do is they would probably get called out to do the assist, to come in and do the assist for Canyon PD or the Sheriff's Department. So yeah, they're not tied, no.
Skip.
No, they're post-certified also. I just see it being easier to have them all deputized, and that way we don't have a problem, because their hands not tied, but it's just a little more clout that they can work with.
Thank you, Skip. Next question. There have been several unsolved murders in Fremont County over the past year. What is your plan to help these murderers, to solve these murders and bring the criminals to justice? And we'll start with Skip.
Well, that's been one of my platforms. I live up in Copper Gulch, and I've seen the murder, but I know about them, and I live up there, and it's a shame. And we are gonna open up all those unsolved cases, or the ones that are closed, and we're gonna get them solved. I've got FBI agent that's gonna work with me. I've talked to him, he doesn't have a problem with it. I've got a specialty officer gonna come in. We've got some good officers already in the Sheriff's Department, and we're gonna solve these cases. And that's gonna be one of my top priorities, to get them solved and bring the perpetrator to justice.
Boyd.
I know for a fact that most of these murders, well, every one of them right now, a lot of evidence has been sent to CBI to be looked at. It takes time to do these. You can interview all the people, but when you get the forensics evidence, then it's got to go somewhere else. So that's where a lot of this evidence is. These guys aren't sitting on their feet just doing nothing. They're working these cases, and I know that there's some suspects already in some of them, that they're just waiting on certain evidence to get back from Denver. So when that evidence gets back, there'll probably be some arrests made. These murders, these 5 murders that's happened over this last year, is pretty much every one of them are hard drug related murders. And so it makes it a little bit harder because the people is here and then they're gone. But I know that our deputies is working hard, the investigators. The evidence is in Denver, a lot of it, and they're waiting on certain forensics to come back, but I do know that they also have suspects. And myself, when I go in, I'd have to look at all of them, talk to the investigators themselves, and see just exactly where they're at. Because right now, I'm not sure, except I do know they're waiting on forensics to come back from Denver.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cooper.
I think when you talk 5, that number's a little bit misleading, because there are, in at least 2 of those, the office is waiting for forensic evidence to come back. Once that comes back, then I think a good suspect interview will probably close those cases. The county does have 3 cases that I would consider cold cases, which means they're more than 5 years old. All the leads that we have available, to my knowledge, have been exhausted. But those are cases that I would want to farm out to a cold case squad. The standard operational practice now for most law enforcement agencies that are not large enough to have their own cold case squad is you work with volunteers. There are forensic volunteers, people schooled in forensic science. There are former FBI agents, former professional law enforcement people that want to do this type of work. I've already talked to several individuals that are interested in looking at some of these cases, and they don't have to come here to work those cases. You can make a copy of everything that you have. You can ship that to them. They will review it. They may recommend that you do a suspect interview, or that you may follow up on a piece of information that's in that file that maybe didn't get followed up, and then that's what your people actually do. These cold case squads, the individuals that make those up actually don't do the arrest portion or the interview portion. That falls to the agency that has jurisdiction.
Thank you very much. Skip?
Well, I thought I answered that. But
He did.
I did
Okay,
answer it.
on to the next. Sorry about that. I get to lose my place once in a while.
Okay, thank you.
I understand that there is a wrongful death civil action suit that's coming to the court in November. Since the outcome may affect the Fremont County Sheriff's Office and the county government, do you plan on attending this and giving it some sheriff's attention? And we'll start with Mr. Cooper.
The short answer is yes.
Mr. Boyd?
Yes, I think that, I don't know much about it because I wasn't there when all this happened, so, but I do know it's coming up pretty quickly.
Yes. Skip?
Well, I'd have to agree with that also, but the way I look at it, anybody that's incarcerated into our county jail does have some rights, and that's their medication, that they make sure they get to, and please treat them with a little respect. And that's what needs to be done, because it has to be a two-way street, but to have someone incarcerated, and I believe there was two of them, one of them was a hanging, there should have been more supervision. Something needed to be done, and as far as the other one, the medication wasn't administered, and definitely we have a problem with that. And I will, when I get in the sheriff's office, I will make sure that does not happen again, because I'm an EMT and firefighter, and I get in the back of that ambulance, and I make sure that I get the person to the hospital, no matter what I have to do, alive. So, thank you.
Thank you, Skip. Understanding that there have been apparently some administrative problems with the sheriff's office in the past, what plans do you have to fix the administration with the sheriff's office? And if you can be specific, if you are aware of any shortcomings, mention those. Start with you, Mr. Canterbury.
Well, once I was elected, I'll be looking at setting a different foundation. Most administration will be pretty much gone, I think. Every time there's an election sheriff or somebody new comes in, people leave, and it may not even be the job. Some of them will leave just because they don't like you. So then you set your foundation. You got to build a foundation under you, from your undersheriff down, your command post. You go from there, your sergeants, and then you put them in place, and then that takes a lot of the pressure off of the sheriff. And again, I go back to, in order to make it work, you've got the people that stay in there. You've got to talk to them, you've got to find out what the issues are, what the problems are, and you've got to deal with them to make it better. If you don't know what the issues are, then you're just not making anything any better. So you talk to the people that's there, the deputies that's there, and then you go and try to solve the issues with your foundation. And one person can't do it. You've got to have a solid foundation under the sheriff.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper?
When I started my campaign, one of the things that I talked about was that there's a lot of good people at the Fremont County Sheriff's Office, and that hasn't changed. There are a lot of good people there. I'm not going to go in and clean the slate. I've heard that out there, that there was some concern about that. But one of the things I am going to do is I've been talking with subject matter experts in accounting, in jail management, in patrol, and investigations, and the structure of the office. And I've got a group of people that have graciously volunteered to be on a transition team that will come in and actually conduct an audit of those various divisions within the office and then make a recommendation to me. Based on that recommendation, I may or may not make changes in the different divisions, but if I do make any changes, those have to be based on best business practices and also human resources, what you can and cannot do as far as employees.
Thank you. Skip?
I think that's an understatement. When you've got deputies that rob from people, you have deputies that jack DUI tickets, and you have deputies that hide evidence in lockers, there's more than just a little problem. I believe that it's training, lack of supervision, and we've got officers that, are underpaid, but that's not an excuse for what's going on. I believe by bringing training and working with these officers and duplicating myself and others and making sure I have good management staff and a check and balance system, I want to keep the officers we got. I don't want any of them running loose. I want to have better training for them. It's like the captain of a cruise ship. He's responsible for that whole ship. He has to make sure that everybody is in their position, doing their job, and qualified for it. But I'll bet you if you'd ask that captain to go down to the galley and make you a scrambled egg and sausage sandwich, he would have no idea how to fix it because he's making sure the cook and the cook's qualifications have to do it. So that's my job as sheriff, to be the leader of the ship and make sure it's done. So it's going to be a lot of training, a lot of hard work, but we've got a lot of good officers and a lot of good supervision and training will bring this back into shape.
Thank you, Skip. Candidate Canterbury has a follow-up comment.
I don't believe in throwing all the deputies under the bus, and I feel like that is just what happened. And these deputies out here, if one guy goes in and he steals something and he's a deputy, none of these other deputies had anything to be involved with it, but yet they're picking up the slack and throwing them under the bus for it, and that's crap. These guys had, that deputy that did that made his own choice. The one that falsified the reports, that was his choice. That wasn't any of these other deputies. So when you start coming down on the deputies, don't come down on all of them, come down on the ones that did it. That was their choice to do it at the time. These other deputies had no idea what was going on. They're just working at their job, liking it, and doing the best they can. Don't throw them under the bus.
Thank you, Boyd. For all three, please. Seeing that Fremont County is a very large county, consisting a lot more of Florence and Canyon City, how do you plan to address the law enforcement needs in the western and northwestern parts of the county? We'll start with Skip.
Oh, thank you. I love that one. Well, I live in the west end of the county, and I see a lot of problems. I'm very familiar with what happens at West End. I work for Howard Fire Department. I work for Arkansas Valley Ambulance. I've been all over that county up there. What I plan on doing is I'm going to have a deputy placement program. Now, I can't ask deputies just up and move and make a move, but I'm going to work into that, and I'm going to find out where everybody lives. And what I'm going to have is a deputy placement program where I have deputies that live, work, eat, and breathe in the area and talk to the community and be part of it. And I feel this will reduce a lot of the problems. It'll speed up the response time, and you'll have almost direct communications with these officers by radio also on the VHF channels that we're still in that operation. So I believe that by having them in the area, it's going to work a lot better because they're going to be part of the community. And I plan on doing that through the whole county, Rockdale, Williamsburg, Coal Creek, all of it, Penrose, through the whole system. And I believe it's going to be a much effective system and a better system we got from driving from one end of the county and taking an hour and a half to get there for a response.
Thank you, Skip. Mr. Cooper.
One of the issues with deputy placement in the West End is that housing is limited, so your travel time is going to be there regardless. But what I would like to do, and I've been working with some of the people in the West End to see if I can resolve this issue, is I'd like to find an individual that's currently living in the West End that has aspirations of becoming a deputy. That's the best of both worlds, because then you'd have an individual that knows that area, knows the people in that area, and they can work that area. I know previously, when I was a journeyman patrolman, we had an entire squad, patrol squad of deputies that worked that west end because I monitored the radio traffic. I don't know why that has changed. I think part of the reason is that deputies seem to congregate in and around the municipalities. And I've had conversations with my city council people, with a couple of county commissioners, that they would like to see those deputies out and about and leave Canyon City to resolve their issues within their own city limits, and the same thing with Florence. The other thing that needs to happen is the deputies have to get in touch with their communities that they serve in. This has worked very well for the Canyon City Police Department when we've worked with our community groups, because we need the community out there being our eyes and ears, because